Ella's Study Notes, where advanced English meets real-life magic.
You know, what if the mountains we see weren't just rock and dirt, but were actually living, breathing beings? What if their fiery eruptions weren't just geology, but were the roars of gods, or the work of giants, or even these grand, desperate acts of love and survival? Well, for thousands of years, that wasn't a what if. It was the answer. So today, we're going to dive into the incredible stories our ancestors created to explain one of nature's most terrifying and, honestly, awe-inspiring shows, the volcano. And for them, these weren't just fairy tales. They were the science of their time, a way to make sense of a world that literally shook and burned beneath their feet. We're going to journey from the divine workshops of the gods to some really tragic love stories etched in stone. We'll even meet some terrifying demons. And then we'll see how all these ancient stories really connect to how we see the world today. Okay, so our journey starts with the gods. For so many cultures, these fiery peaks weren't just landforms. They were the homes of immense divine power. An eruption wasn't some random event. No, it was a message, or maybe even a warning from on high. In Hawaii, the living, breathing embodiment of the volcano is Pele. She's a goddess with incredible power and, let me tell you, a legendary temper. It was said that whenever Pele got angry, she'd make the ground shake and the mountains erupt in a total fury. But here's the thing about Pele's power. It had two sides. She wasn't just a destroyer. I mean, yes, her lava could absolutely ravage the land. But once it cooled, it formed new Earth, literally creating the Hawaiian Islands from nothing. She was both the end and the beginning, which is a perfect metaphor for a volcano itself, right? So while Hawaiians saw a goddess's temper, if you go halfway across the globe, the ancient Greeks heard something totally different in the thunder of Mount Etna. To them, that wasn't the sound of rage. It was the sound of work. A master craftsman, busy at his forge.
Yep, they believed that deep down, under the mountain, was the actual workshop of Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths. So every tremor or every puff of smoke, well, that was just a sign that he was hammering away at his anvil, crafting some incredible stuff for the other gods.
And what exactly was he making in this, divine factory? Oh, just some of the most legendary items in all of Greek mythology. We're talking Hermes' winged helmet that let him fly, Achilles' impenetrable armor, all of it literally hammered into existence by the fire and power of the volcano. But not all volcano myths are about gods and their epic powers. Some are deeply, deeply human, telling these incredible stories of love and loss and loyalty that became immortalized in the landscape forever. If you look at the skyline in modern-day Mexico, you'll see two majestic volcanoes standing right next to each other. For the Aztecs, they weren't just mountains. They were once a warrior and a princess. They were deeply in love, but were tragically separated by death. The gods, so moved by their story, transformed them into mountains so they could stand together for all time. And here's the really beautiful, kind of heartbreaking part. The warrior's mountain, Popocatépetl, is still an active volcano. And those plumes of smoke you see, they're said to be a sign that he's still watching over his beloved princess, Iztaccíhuatl, the dormant white lady right beside him. So, from the eternal love of partners, we're going to move to a story of desperate, familial devotion over in New Zealand. This is the legend of a medicine man named Ngā Toro, who found himself freezing to death while trying to climb a sacred mountain. So in his final moments, he cries out to his sisters who are miles and miles away, and miraculously, they hear him. They send fire demons burrowing through the very earth, this kind of subterranean rescue mission that bursts through the peak of the mountain, spewing fire and warmth. It saves Ngā Tororu, and in the process creates the volcano we know as Ngā Ruhue. Of course, not everything that lives in a volcano is a god or a hero. For some cultures, those fiery peaks were home to something much, much darker. Way over in the volcanic Kamchatka Peninsula of Russia, the indigenous Itelmen people told stories about demons called gomuls. And these creatures, they made their homes right in the smoldering craters of the volcanoes. And they weren't just sitting around either. The stories say that every single night, the gomuls would fly out from their lairs to hunt whales and huge fish in the sea. and they'd bring their catch all the way back to cook it over the volcano's eternal flames. Just imagine that, a monstrous nightly feast. And for our last story, we've got a fantastic one from Indonesia, where the creation of Mount Bromo is all thanks to a love-struck ogre. See, he desperately wanted to marry a princess, and she gave him a seemingly impossible task to prove he was worthy. He had to dig out the entire crater of the mountain in just one night. And using only a coconut shell, he worked like a maniac and, unbelievably, he was actually about to do it. But the clever princess, seeing this, had an idea. She made all the roosters in the village crow early, tricking the ogre into thinking dawn had broken. He failed, just moments from success, leaving behind the massive crater we can still see today. So, what do we take away from all these incredible tales? I mean, from gods and lovers to demons and ogres, every single story is a window into this fundamental human need we have to understand the world around us. You have to remember, before we understood plate tectonics and magma chambers, we had these stories. They were humanity's first real attempt to rationally explain a powerful, terrifying, and completely unpredictable force of nature. In a way, they were the original science.
And that's exactly why they still matter so much. Science tells us how a volcano works, but these myths, they tell us how a volcano feels. They're a timeless reminder of our connection to the Earth and of the enduring power of a good story to explain our world.